Thank you, Madam President. Well, it's been nearly a year since a madman's actions devastated Las Vegas. The shock and pain related to October 1st still remains today. 58 innocent people lost their lives. Over 800 people were injured, and many of them continue to face a long road to physical and emotional recovery. Know that you're not alone on that road. We support you, and we're praying for you. Our community is still grieving, and it will never be the same. But hatred and fear will not win that night. That's because even though one man's horrific actions exposed humanity at its worst, what followed were countless stories of true heroism and humanity at its very best. Las Vegas showed the world what it meant to be Vegas strong. And I had the honor of experiencing it firsthand in the eyes and voices of those who survived and those who are eager to help others. On that tragic night, so many ordinary Nevadans made the choice to be extraordinary. Let me give you a couple of examples. They stayed on the field to help the wounded as shots continued to rain down. They took their shirts off their backs, used their belts as tourniquets, applied pressure to help stop a stranger from bleeding to death. Some made stretchers on the spot using the festival barriers. Some used their trucks and vehicles to transport the wounded to the hospital. For example, Taylor Winston, a Marine and Iraq War veteran, managed to escape the gunfire. He helped several people over the fence when they took cover. Then he found an abandoned vehicle, turned it into a makeshift ambulance. After rushing multiple people to the hospital, he turned around, went back. He ultimately drove around 30 injured people to the hospital. That night, police officers also covered concert goers, shielded them from gunfire, and directing them to safety. Firefighters, paramedics, ambulance drivers who had never encountered anything as horrific as that carnage of October 1st plunged into danger to save lives without hesitation, even though they were defenseless, because, Madam President, that's what they do. That week, I had the privilege of meeting a Las Vegas police officer, Sergeant Jonathan Riddle. He was stationed a block from the shooting scene doing traffic control. After shots were fired from Mandalay Bay, he took off sprinting towards the hotel, even though everyone else was running away from it. Dozens of Metro police officers, including Officer Tyler Peterson, who was on his second day of the job, did the exact same thing. They rushed towards the firestorm to help in any way they could, and of course, to save lives. When I visited the local hospitals, I was struck by the stories that doctors and nurses shared about concert goers who responded bravely and admirably. Stories about people who reacted to cowardly violence, stood in the face of danger to protect a neighbor, a friend, a family member, or someone that they had never met. A doctor at UMC put it best when he said that the patients showed exemplary courage. He told me that he spoke to all the patients in the trauma room. Some of them were strangers who accompanied the person who sustained injuries while shielding them from bullets. He told me that many of the patients in the emergency room that night said to the doctors, quote, "That person is more seriously injured than I am. Take care of them first, come back to me later," unquote. When I visited UMC, I had the opportunity to meet with one of the respiratory therapists who attended the concert. She showed me her phone, which had been shattered by a bullet that night. Plastic had torn through her hand, and it was embedded in her skin. What did she do? She pulled the shards out of her hand, bandaged it herself, rushed to the hospital to try to help people who she said need more help than she did. I'm so grateful for the staff at our hospitals whose skill, whose composure and dedication saved one life after another. I'm also grateful for the work of our law enforcement and our first responders on the scene. Each unit took an all-hands-on-deck approach, and everyone functioned as one team. Instead of being frozen by the aftershock of crippling grief, Nevada mobilized and true leaders emerged. My friend, Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who heads the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, is one of them. But many of the heroes who emerged in the wake of this tragedy didn't have a badge. Instead, they were teachers, waiters, security guards, and construction workers who assumed the responsibility to protect others. Take the story of Jack Beaton, a man whose final act on earth was draping himself over his wife to protect her from deadly bullets. Or John, a cab driver who accelerated towards the screams and chaos and drove nearly a dozen people to safety. Everyone banded together. Local organizations and businesses throughout the state and country stepped up to help. Las Vegas Convention Center South Hall was dedicated to family reunification and support services. Airlines answered the call to provide free flights to families of victims. Hotels and casinos across Las Vegas offered free rooms. Lines of people were eager to give blood, twisted around Las Vegas. Some even waited in line more than 7 hours just because they wanted to help in any way they could. Just a few hours after the injured concert goers flooded the hospitals in Las Vegas, the Red Cross encouraged volunteer blood donations. In a statement, the Red Cross said last night, "Tragedy illustrates that it's the blood already in the shelves that helped during the emergency." My wife, Lynn, and I joined the masses of Nevadans who donated blood in Las Vegas last October. And on Monday, this October 1st, on this day, each year going forward, we will donate blood in recognition of this anniversary. Members of my staff who want to give blood have committed to doing the same. While it may be just a small gesture, it's an important one because when the city of Las Vegas needed help, patients needed blood, the Red Cross was able to step in because the inventory was there. When I returned to Washington, D.C. from Las Vegas last October, I immediately began pursuing every available option to provide relief for victims and their families, as well as assistance for local law enforcement and emergency responders. From pressing the Attorney General to make funding available for victims and their families and securing funding to cover Nevada's law enforcement's overtime costs relating to their response to the shooting, to leading a bipartisan resolution recognizing the innocent lives that were lost, working with Senator Cortez Masto to ask health insurers and our airlines to do whatever they could to help victims. I worked with this Congress and this White House to deliver resources to Nevada to try to help in any way we could. To help Las Vegas future attacks and to prevent them, I also spoke with the President on Air Force One on our way out of Nevada last October about the critical role of federal funding to protect a city that welcomes over 40 million people annually. As a direct result, the criteria used to determine funding that is allocated to high-threat urban areas to terrorism was updated, and this year Las Vegas received nearly double the amount of federal funding compared to last year. I'll never stop working to see that Nevada has the resources it needs to keep our communities safe. As President Donald Trump said, this attack was an act of pure evil, and unity cannot be shattered by evil. He also said that the bonds between the people of the United States cannot be broken by violence, and I, Madam President, agree with him. We are all still in this together, and together we'll continue moving down the long road of recovery by honoring the memory of those lost and by holding on to the sense of compassion and community that emerged. I, like many others, could not only feel the strong sense of family, faith, and strength in the wake of October 1st, I saw it firsthand. The immeasurable pain, the suffering, and devastation inflicted by one man elicited a profound, innate, and immediate human response from a city of people who stood side by side during its darkest hour to protect a friend or a stranger that they had never met. Ronald Reagan once said, "Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look." On October 1st, and in the days that followed, the world witnessed a Las Vegas that they may have not known, a place that has been further defined by the heroes that are among us, the ones who had sprung into action that night. That is truly the identity of Las Vegas. Las Vegas is resilient, and together we'll continue to be Vegas strong. Thank you, Madam President.